Welcome to episode 4 of Church After Hours. We are back here, me and my man Kurt Kareem, and we have a special guest. But before we get to our guest, we always have to do a recap of our most previous episode, which was episode 3. We had my brother on, Johnny J's himself. We called it the Easter Sunday episode. And Kurt, right before we start tonight's show, man, what was your thoughts about episode 3, Easter Sunday, man? What's the word out on the street?
Oh man, more good memories. You kind of shot Jay's story down for it not being a holy hustle story, but I think he might have hit the nail on the head with y'all going to Atlanta and getting that bag, and going to Chicago and getting that bag.
Right.
Sentimental.
And man, thanks you for everybody that checked out the Easter episode. It was super dope, and it brought back a lot of great memories. Everybody was tripping off of our Easter pictures. Me and my siblings with Kurt and Mia together. It was beautiful, man. It was dope.
Well, I ain't gonna say something about that picture.
Yes, please do.
If y'all look at that picture, everybody used to call me Tattoo from the plane. Remember the little dude, the plane, because I had
Fantasy Island.
My head hadn't grown into my body yet. I had the 3-piece suit on. But go ahead, brother.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. My man from Fantasy Island. Well, we ain't gonna hold y'all no more, man. We have a very special guest. She's a day one member of the crew. She was in the crew before we was ever really in the crew for real. We're going to talk about that tonight. And that's none other than our sister, Miss Reese, a.k.a. Tanya. What's going on, beloved? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome.
Now,
I'm excited. I've been waiting. You've been talking about it. I've been waiting. And I've been thoroughly entertained. Oh, my gosh. I've been cracking up every show. Like, so much. So many things I can hit on from all of those shows so far.
Absolutely. And everybody's like, yo, we appreciate the show and what y'all doing. But, of course, our sisters going to be like, we need some sisters. I know y'all have some sisters in the crew. And we definitely have some. And we definitely have some sisters in the crew. And you're going to see a lot of sisters throughout this podcast. But I felt like we needed to have her on first because she's kind of like the OG of over all of us. And you mentioned checking out the first couple.
And I was also the sweet one as well.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that too. But you talked about checking out the first couple episodes, man. What has been your thoughts about the first few episodes since we're only 3 in, this being number 4?
They were great. It was good to see, Barry, and he's telling his stories because, I was a tenor. So I was with the guys,
right?
Which was awesome. So I was just, as soon as Barry started talking, and what really tripped me out is Barry got kicked out of choir rehearsal every other choir rehearsal.
Absolutely, he didn't tell that story. Absolutely.
And so sometimes I might have had a little to do with that, but I used to get all hyped up, like, say something, Barry.
Because he was gassing
me. Because let's be clear, Reverend Piper's gonna see this. We have gotten word that he has been watching this podcast. It was Reese's favorite. Let's just get it out there. You know what I'm saying? He loved Reese. She was the only her and Moochie. Shout out to Moochie Charlie. They was the only women that was in the tenor section, so they was always cutting up with us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so that I was just thinking of that. But what hit home is because Barry did get kicked out a lot, and I loved him to death. But when he told those stories about 2 of his friends, it really, that's why, me now, Miss Purpose Coach and everything.
Right.
That's why I always say you really have to pay attention to like what somebody could be going through. Right. And when you see people acting out, like it all clicked. Like watching that, I'm like, Dad. Then we didn't really realize that was going. I didn't really I remember that story, but I didn't know about like the one where his friend died and trying to save his mom, like vaguely, and probably didn't even correlate it to how it affected him.
Right.
Right. So.
No, it's funny you said that because a lot of people said the same thing. Like, man, we didn't realize Barry had experienced that type of trauma. And that's why we wanted to start this podcast so people can hear these stories and, kind of appreciate where we are as adults in life now. So let's get into tonight's episode, man. Talk about your relationship to the crew and how it got started. And I wanted to bring you on first from a lady's perspective because our story starts, me and our crew story starts the end of 91, Christmas Sunday, when Pastor Pipers brought me in, and then my first rehearsal the week of New Year's, after New Year's in 92. But you are a member of the Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church. way before that, back on Bird Street, before everybody's seen this big, beautiful edifice that sits at 9991 Wayne Avenue right now, back on Bird Street. So talk about the genesis of the youth choir and the youth committee and the different things that Miss Juanita and Pastor Pipers had us doing before we even got there back on Bird Street.
So when I went, it was on Bird Street, you know, Michelle and Jason, we kind of like, we didn't know anybody. Everybody
and let them know who Shell and Jason is.
Oh yeah, Shell and Jason are my cousins, and Shell was in the choir.
Right.
Okay, so Shell was a alto and very vocal.
Yes.
So, and but Shell actually could sing a little bit other than like me. But we kind of were like getting to know everybody when we were on Bird Street, and my age, I like didn't fit in with Shell and Van and all of them because I was a little older than them and Carla, and then but like Renee and all the older people, Anita, all of them, they was too old for me. Like right. So I was always like ended up hanging with, you know, Shell and Carla and all of them, and I hung with both parties, so I kind of hang with them and whatever. But what I remember when I first came there, I was like, oh, I love this church, I want to stay. And we were a small church then. I mean, Bird Street was little, but I love the fact that Reverend Pifus they had so much stuff for the youth. I mean, in that little basement that was in Bird Street, you know, it was every Sunday, it was something going on. And it made me like eventually connect with the other people because you kept showing up to choir rehearsal, you know, and it just felt like a family atmosphere. And when my dad was heavily on drugs at the time, so, you know, it was just kind of like me and my mom and me. My dad was around, but to have like that fatherly input. One of the reasons why everybody like, you know, I don't play about Reverend Pifus. I don't play no games about my Reverend Pifus. And one of the reasons why I don't care what they got to say, can't talk about him, is because he showed so much love to me as a youth. And I saw everybody else he showed that same love to. Like he gave you that father figure. He was on you about your stuff. And he actually made you feel like he cared. And for real, we got a lot of our culture and like learning how to go out of town and travel from church. Yeah. He took chances on taking all of us. I mean, we got stories. I definitely tell when we get to telling a funny story. I got plenty of them, especially Shreveport and we all went down.
I definitely want to talk about Louisiana because that was right before I got there, and I always hear those classic stories when y'all opened up for the whiners and the whole 9 yards. So we definitely want to talk about that. Yeah.
So that was probably the first time a lot of y'all was away from y'all parents, right?
Yeah.
So that was very impactful.
Oh, it was, and then we were so tight. So we was going out, we weren't looking at it like we about to go to church. People used to be looking at me like, you excited because you going to the church retreat? I'm like, yes, like we couldn't wait to retreat or anything going out of town because we was regular kids.
Right.
You know, we had a lot of fun. What I loved about Reverend Pifus and the Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist was they took a chance on us, like taking all of us out.
Right.
It wasn't just like 2 or 3, 10 of us. It was like 20, 30 of us sometimes.
Right.
So.
And when we got there, the choir eventually got bigger. But I remember, you know, talking to people like Van and Nada, how back in the day it was like 25, 30 people in the choir at that time. But when we got there, it had grown because it was now considered a mega church. So I want to stay right there and talk about the impact that Lincoln Heights Baptist had when you talk about Reverend Pipers and his impact, how he was a father figure to you at that particular time. And shout out to your beautiful mom, Miss Cookie, who's always been holding it down. But talk about the impact that he had and the church had on your life from a personal standpoint during those times at Bird Street as the church transitioned to Wayne Avenue.
Well, from Bird Street, I kind of just got to put them together because we weren't at Bird Street that long before we came over there. But the impact was significant just because a lot of my friends, I lived in Pine Hill. So I wasn't in the suburbs or anything like that. And there was a lot going on. I was either in Pine Hill or I went to Evanston.
Right.
That's where my daddy was at. Like
So
vacation.
you wasn't in
to
Forest Park
vacation.
or Fairfield like us, right? That's what you tried to
That's
say.
I wasn't. That's what I'm
exactly
trying to
how I
say.
took it.
I'm just trying to say. So I was
Slid
from
the
the streets.
That's
I was
real
from the
though. That's
streets.
real. That's real.
It's real though, for
That's
real
real.
though. And I'm gonna tell you something. Just that, what I think Jay said. Shout out to my brother. Um, he was saying like we had a big melting pot where you guys went there, but you met people in Bond Hill, or you met people. We met people in Lincoln Heights, and we met people in Fairfield and things like that, Lakota and stuff. And I look forward to going over to you guys' house, like
Yeah.
because I honestly was like, oh, it's nice. I'm going over there. Like I was going to the rich part. Like, shoot, I'm gonna be in Forest Park this weekend. Like it just felt comfortable. You know what I mean? Honestly, it was real safe, and all of that stemmed from church. Just it gave me something to aspire for. One thing it did was all the families were so tight. Like Reverend Pipers would come to Miss Moorehouse.
Yep.
And this is why I loved him. He was such a relatable person.
People person.
Like
yep.
He was a people person, and he cared. He was like family. Our church was like, it was huge, but it still all felt like family there.
That's what I said.
And he would come to Miss Moorehouse. Oh, shout out, rest in peace.
Rest in peace,
Moore.
Mama Moore. Yes, man. Yep.
And he would come there after church, and we would kick it, play cards. Like it was just a fun atmosphere. And then all the other families would come. Your mom, your dad would come over. I'm invited to everybody to go come over there. And we had a lot of fun while they was upstairs in the basement. We had our own things going downstairs. So I'm just talking about as all the youth.
I know.
In the basement,
I was just messing around. I was just messing around because D face was so
Curtis stupid.
D face was so straight while you was
y'all know I'm crazy. Y'all thought I wasn't.
Curtis stupid, man.
No, I was just saying though, like me, Carla, Lee, all of us would be downstairs. While, like the pastor upstairs chilling, and we down here. He don't have an idea that we downstairs about to try to leave out, go to the park,
right,
and to do things that
Go to Eden Park on Sundays was the thing to do though in the summertime in Cincinnati, for real.
Yes, it was.
I was gonna say also, Reverend Pipers gave me my first job. I don't know if everybody knows that.
Oh wow!
When Miss Moore I was getting ready to go to school, and I was trying to get, buy my own books and different things like that. And Miss Moore had to go on vacation, and Reverend Pipers paid me to come up there and be the secretary. That was so fun.
Oh, wow.
So I would literally have Shell and Tori and would come up to church and just sit up there with me, and Alan would come up there and with Tori. We had a lot of fun up there. But when I was there, Reverend Pipers gave me like, I'll say I probably should have got a $250 check, and he gave me like $1,200.
Wow.
It's like looking out for me. So I guess maybe that was my holy hustle.
I was just thinking the same thing.
So you and Reverend Pipers was holy hustling them Lincoln Heights paper.
You know
what I'm saying?
I looked up to Reverend Pipers growing up as a kid, but as I got older, actually he did have a little crush on me.
Oh. A lot of young sisters did. You know what I'm saying? That's
we
hilarious.
did. We all did. Everybody had a crush on Reverend Pipers.
I'm glad she said that, because I've been thinking of a Sinners and Saints story myself, and I don't want to cut into yours. Mine is very short. I just want to know, did anybody else, when the church would get silent, y'all be praying, anybody else like open their eyes and start looking around at things like I was? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, a couple times.
And then you feel then you feel the guilt because you're doing it during while people are praying. I said, oh man, I learned to control that.
Absolutely. Now that's gonna be probably a whole episode in itself, talking about the crushes from our youth leaders and older women in the adult choir and just women in our church, because it was some beautiful women. You know what I'm saying? And you had to have a crush on somebody. So I'll reveal mine at some point, but she might watch this and think it's hilarious. But Kurt introduced Sinners and Saints, and I have a really, really good Sinners and Saints story. So we go pause for the calls and get into that real quick. So Sinners and Saints, basically what it means is It means you're a person who's striving to be a good Christian and be a saint. It always reminds me of the Donnie McClurkin song, "A Saint is Just a Sinner Who Fell Down but Got Up." And as a sinner and a saint, you're trying to do the right thing, and then sometimes you get knocked off track and you find yourself committing some sinful acts. You have a saint and a sinner, right? In this particular story, I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. I'm not even gonna say who was with me because it doesn't matter, because I was sinning at the moment. So anybody that's from Ohio know on Sundays, or especially back in the 90s, you couldn't buy alcohol on Sundays. It was dry, and you couldn't buy alcohol.
Yeah.
Now I think you can get. I think now you can get alcohol up to like 4 or 5 o'clock, and then they shut it down. But back in the 90s, early 2000s, it was totally dry. You couldn't get no alcohol unless you went over the bridge and went into Kentucky. Which this particular Sunday, we didn't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? We was like, nah, you know what I'm saying? I think I was in my mom's Lincoln or my dad's Camry, one of the two, when I was like, I ain't got money to be driving to Kentucky. So it was a brother who was a deacon who did not go to our church, who shall remain nameless. If you from Lincoln Heights, you know who he is. He sold alcohol out of his house. So this particular Sunday, we like, look, man, and we had done this a few times before. And his son went to our church. But he was a deacon at a Baptist church at another church that wasn't our church, just to put that out there. We're not throwing nobody under the bus. However, his son went to our church. So this particular Sunday, we drive over, we go to his crib, and every time we went, we always tried to avoid his son seeing us because we was youth leaders in the church, and we didn't want people to see us buying alcohol and people see us out here sinning. You know what I'm saying? They thought we were saints. So this particular Sunday, we go, I get everybody's money. We get a pint of Remy and a pint of hen. And as we leaving, we make the exchange, I dap him up. I'm backing out, and his son is walking up the street. So I'm like, oh snap, we trying to go in the other direction, and he know my mom's car. So he jogs down the street. What y'all doing over here at my daddy's house? What? Oh, we like, no, we was in the wrong area. He was like, no, y'all wasn't in the wrong area. What y'all got? We was like, we ain't doing nothing. He was like, man, tell the truth. I was like, man, we bought some liquor from your dad. He's like, I'm telling Reverend Pipers, I'm telling Miss Juanita, y'all church boys, what are y'all doing? These type of people come to my dad's house. Y'all ain't in that crowd. Y'all shouldn't be in here. So we just had to tell him, like, fam, we've been drinking and smoking for a minute. Like, you know what I'm saying? like we just didn't feel like driving over the bridge this week. So we had to come break bread with your dad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and that's my sinners and saints story right there. I'm gonna leave it right there. Everybody that's from Cincinnati and Lincoln Heights gonna know exactly who I'm talking about. So shout out to Sinners and Saints story number 1 on episode 4. So let's dig back into the conversation. Now we talked about the impact that Reverend Pipers and Lincoln Heights had on us. When you look at where you are in life today, you're a life coach. Talk a little bit about that, and then talk about how growing up in Lincoln Heights kind of helped shape who you are today as an adult with a beautiful family.
It shaped a lot because if you recall, you may not remember this because it was right before you got there. But I got the key to the city in Cincinnati when I was 16. And I got it because, number one, I used to do Red Cross with Miss Juanita. I used to do a lot of volunteering, man. She was the most sweetest soul you could ever meet.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, like you could feel her love just as soon as she just opened her mouth and started speaking like that. She was just a beautiful soul. Yep. So
and her singing,
Ooh, Lord.
Ooh, oh man.
Tear the church up.
Angelic.
Order my steps.
Angelic.
That was the joint right there.
Man,
but go ahead, Reese. I'm sorry. We was reminiscing about that. Yeah,
no, for real. Seriously, you gotta bring that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got the key to the city, and Miss Juanita used to do take me to Red Cross. Well, I got into I was an Eastern Star, like the younger. It was called Girls Assembly. So I was in that, and they actually gave me the key to the city. But because I did Red Cross, it gave me extra hours that they had found out. So it had put me on another level or something, and it all kind of like tied in. But me being a youth leader at church, you know, it always.
What level was you on? 33rd degree? What level
there you go.
I was like, it's levels to this, okay? I ain't getting no regular key. I got the velvet blue box key.
That's dope.
That's what's up.
You still got it? So
Do you still
unfortunately, I
have it?
do not. My house burned down. My
Oh,
I remember that.
sophomore year in college burned down to the
oh
ground
man.
and lost everything.
God bless.
So my mother is like my biggest fan. I'm only child, by the way, but she is like go hard for me. And she did everything she could to try to give me another key, surprise me, and do everything. It is so hard. She could not get it and it's just so, I was 16 now. So that was so what it did is just being at vacation Bible school, Reverend Pipers will always put me and say, Reese, well, you can be like an assistant, or always was on me to be an example. Like,
Right.
you're a little bit older than them. You got to be an example. And he saw something in me. He would tell me that,
Smart.
he told me that before. We did the reunion. That was beautiful. That reunion really showed to me how tight we are. And that wasn't a representation of who Reverend Pipe is really, what he did and who he is.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
everybody wanted to come back. We all
Yep.
came back, right?
Yep.
We got to do it again.
And that was my first time meeting you all because I was too young to have
Right.
been in that gap to where before y'all went off to college.
I
and
remember when I
whatnot.
met you, we was all downtown at the restaurant. We instantly got cool. It was cool.
Yeah, we got the pictures that's gonna be shown on this episode.
But full circle, Reverend Pipers actually did my grandmother's funeral.
Mm.
And that's how much he stayed connected. I've been in Cleveland for 22 years.
Right.
So, and he did my grandmother's funeral, and my pastor from here came down. And Reverend Pipers went over there and literally had a talk with my pastor and was like, I don't know what like a father. He was like, I don't know what you doing with her. I was youth director at the church at the time. He said, I don't know what you doing. Right. And he was like, he said, but you need to make sure he didn't know that though. He said, you need to make sure she in the leadership role. He said, because she's special. And he was like, and you want to use her in church. And he was like, Reese really has something. She was always a leader. And it's caught me off guard. I didn't even realize that he looked at me like that. But he didn't even know this man. He coming over there, Reverend Pipe was like, look, let me tell you something.
Right. Take care of my daughter.
Like a father.
He had groomed you to be a leader.
Right.
Absolutely.
That was dope.
And he also came to my high school too. So I had so many ties with Reverend Pipers. That's how he brought Keisha. Remember Keisha Tucker?
Yes. Super cold vocalist.
And he got her. He recruited her. This is why Reverend Pipers was so loud to me. I went to Woodward High School. He came to do something and I was so excited. Like, that's my pastor, y'all. Came to do a performance or something that was going on. And he heard her sing. And he recruited her to come sing in our youth choir. Like, he was serious about the youth choir. So, yeah.
That's dope.
The youth choir was lit.
It was very lit.
It was lit for real. We had so much fun. And I couldn't sing. I couldn't sing at all. And he gave me one little rap part one time. I was so happy.
And it's funny you said that. Before we get to a crew fun story, and I'm going to come to Kurt and Reese, so make sure y'all got y'all stories ready. Coming from Chicago, man, like it was always known as like a gospel capital between Chicago and Detroit for singing. So I was always knowing good singers and good musicians and all that. And Reverend Pipers was definitely cold. But I got to give him props and shout out to Alan Brown and Shane Bannert. That was the first time I ever heard cats that was rapping about the Lord. Like we had never seen that. You know what I'm saying? Like they was doing like 16 bars. You know what I'm saying? Like we go pull up the footage at one of our youth choir concerts. Me, Eric, Reverend Pipers is playing, and we doing like a remix of an instrumental of Between the Sheets, and Alan and Shane is just rapping. You know what I'm saying? Like 80 bars just going back and forth talking about the Lord. And I had never heard that. Like I knew hip hop, but I never heard nobody that was doing Christian hip hop. It just blew my mind. And that just goes to show you, like, he was like, if I'm gonna get these young people in the church, I got to keep their interest. They love hip hop, so let them write about the Lord. They're in church. You know what I mean? So that just showed his genius and how he was using different things to tap into the youth to keep us attentive and keep us there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So Kurt, man, I'm gonna give it to Reese and I'm gonna come to you. Give me a fun crew story. So Reese, it could be the Louisiana trip or the time y'all open up for the Winans. And I'm throwing these different things out there because even if you only tell one, people know we're gonna have you back in the future sometime soon to give us another one. But any crew fun story you want to tell?
Well, yeah, Shreveport was definitely one of the best trips we ever had. And probably one of the worst trips Reverend Piper's had with us. We embarrassed him. We embarrassed him. Reverend Piper was so embarrassed. We acted up so bad. They were so disappointed in us on that ride back. But it was because they had us in the hotel, man. We was in each other's hotel room late night. Everybody was going back and forth, man. But we kicked. You talking about kicked it hard? We kicked it so hard. We was up all night, music blasting. It was jumping around, playing by the pool. We was doing everything that we shouldn't have did. We did, and I think Miss Juanita cried. But then look, we did all of that. We were in so much trouble, right? And then Sunday, they went off on us. They like read us the riot act. It was I felt awful, and I'm sure I didn't do anything wrong. But
so you say
we get the next day we get to church. That was Saturday night. Sunday was the most inspirational. Everybody in the choir felt the Holy Ghost. I don't know if we was just feeling so bad what we did, but Reverend Pfeiffer's preached his butt off. We sang like we had never sang before. I mean, it was crazy. And almost the whole choir got happy. Like the guys, the girls, the whole choir. And even the people that was at the church, they was kind of looking at us like, wow, these some anointed kids. Knowing we was probably really like, Lord help us, is he gonna tell
like
us
we sorry
when we get back?
Right.
So that was bad as hell the night before.
Right.
I mean, and then he ended up being like so excited that we sang so well and we felt the spirit that it was cool, but that was probably one of the first times we disappointed him, and we tried not. It was probably makes you feel bad when you so bad.
Yes. So I think we just had our second Sinners and Saints story on the podcast.
I have so many
because they was definitely sinning the night before, but the Holy Spirit came upon them that next day, and they was back to saints. But Kurt, go ahead, brother.
As Reese was telling her story, I was thinking of different things. But I have to give it up to what she referred to prior, which was the reunion that all of us can, because, I can think of all type of different things that happened in our youth, but for us to come, back and looking back on that now, I was younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I had locks back then. I had hair. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I had hair too. I almost took my hat off, man, to show everybody. You know what I mean? But what things are looking like these days. But that overlaps and to me trumps everything that we've done is that reunion, because that created a bond that we started communicating with each other, started catching up with each other's kids, and really talking to each other in an adult way, and dealing with each other's issues, whether we wanted to or not, but because we loved each other and had rekindled that bond. I think that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah, the reunion was like, 12, 13 years ago. And it was funny because, like Reese said, she's been in Cleveland for 22 years. I had just moved back from Mississippi. I know Kurt was in Indianapolis and came back home. Dina was in Atlanta. Erica was in DC. Victoria was in DC. So everybody was kind of coming from different places. And without social media being as prevalent in our lives as it is now, we really wasn't keeping in touch like we should at that point in time.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So shout out to people like my sister. Shout out to people like Granada, who put the reunion together and basically put out the bat signal, and we all came back like Avengers. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely correct, Kurt. Like that was the moment where we got a chance to pivot and reestablish our relationships, because at that time we had kind of lost touch.
Wasn't that like the best feeling when you walked in the door and everybody was like seeing each other, and then everybody was just doing so well?
Yes.
Everybody was doing really good, and just to see what different people were doing in their lives, and it was like that. We were a great group of people.
That's right. Yes. You're right. The whole time, Reverend Pipus had already, had already thought about these things and how it was going to rekindle some of these fires. So.
Yep. Well, we have come to the home stretch, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. But before we close out, Reese, in closing, talk about what you're doing now and some of your businesses and the coaching and the things. Basically, just tie it all together, how it has, growing up in the church has inspired you to do some of the things you're doing now and promote. I see you got your candle back there, promoting your brand. I got the candles, they super dope. So just close us out and talk about that a little bit before we wrap up.
All right. Well, actually been at AT&T 22 years this week.
Wow, congrats.
Congratulations.
Thanks. As an engineer, I'm on countdown. Can't wait to hit 25. I'm out to focus on my brand, which is Love Yourself Productions. And what I do with that is I'm a purpose coach. I am not a life coach because I don't want to help you get your life together, but I do want to help you. It's the truth. Because if you find your purpose, being a life coach, it's a lot on you. I want to help you find your purpose. I feel like once you find your purpose, that opens up the door to everything else. And that will automatically increase the positivity and the growth in your life. So I'm really heavily about finding your purpose. And a lot of that comes from my church upbringing, just wanting to see people do well and wanting people to feel good and know that they are amazing. That's what I do. And then I also make the most amazing candles in the world. They're all natural soy, positive energy candles. I hand make them, and that is my biggest focus with that. I have shooting a pilot for a show that's possibly be coming out on Netflix.
Dope.
Actually, 2 different shows. It's crazy. My life is a lot right now, but it's a poetry, and it's called Prescription Therapy, and it's helping people heal through poetry. It's been a really big hit here in Cleveland and selling out, and it's gone to a bigger platform. So that's my focus right now. And then I have 4 children, and my twins just turned 20. All of them have jobs, so I'm helping them be entrepreneurs and find their way through life. And the funny thing is, my kids remember the reunion, and they were young. Yeah. And they remember the reunion, and they just thought that was so awesome. They used to come home, and they used to be singing the songs, and because we had the little CD, I would come home. Right. I was so proud to show all my friends and everything, the video of it, and they still remember it, and they grew up in praise dancing. So it's kind of just things that I did, I kind of instilled in them.
Yep, that's dope. Well, we thank y'all for checking out episode 4 of Church After Hours. We'll be back next week with another dope episode for you. We'll see y'all next week. Peace and blessings.
Peace and love.
Church After Hours.